Well, good morning and welcome to Pizza Quest. I'm Peter Reinhardt, and I am here with a guy from my hometown, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which is always fun for me to visit. Dave Ravanesi is joining us, and Dave, I'm gonna kind of let you explain to everybody who you are and how you got here and why you're here
Sure.
in just 1 second. But I will preface this by saying that my brother lives in Philly, just a few miles from your pizzeria, Ravanesi's Pizza Napolitana. And where you are, you like on Baltimore Pike? Is that where you were around
I
there?
am. I'm in Glen Mills. Yes.
Glen Mills, which is on the edge of Philadelphia. And he called me a couple weeks ago and he said, "I found a place. I found this guy that I didn't know about, and it was like right in his backyard." And he was very excited because he and I discovered years ago. We discovered Pizzeria Badia in North Philly, and Harry's kind of my brother. Harry's kind of like the my scout, my talent scout out there for Philadelphia. So when he finds something that he's excited about, and he doesn't get excited about every place he goes, but he got very excited about your pizza.
Oh,
And so he
very
told me
nice.
about you. We connected. We started talking. And there's so much that I want to talk with you about. One of which is this. I'm going to just start things off with this. See if you recognize this.
Lift it up. Wait, hold. Yeah.
Can you
Hold
hear
on.
it? It's just music. Can you hear the music? Does that sound familiar? Is
I
it coming
can't
through?
hear it.
Oh, you can't hear it. I wonder why. Okay. Well, what I'm playing is a song called Party Town,
Oh yeah.
the Whiskey Six.
Sure.
So in addition to being I'm turning it off since it's not working. Since in addition to being a pizza guy, and you're also a musician, a songwriter. So we want to get all that into this.
No, sure.
So tell us
Absolutely.
a little about Ravanesi's, and I'll just jump in and ask questions as we go. So
Sure.
how did you end up, and how long has Ravanesi's been going?
Well, first, Peter, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. This is
Sure.
always kind of a fun thing. It's nice that I met your brother and we got to connect and I just appreciate you wanting to take the time to talk to me and hear a little bit about me because I kind of live a
Well,
quiet life.
like we're always on this quest for the perfect pizza. And when my brother says, "I think I found it," he says, "This is going to be the next Pizzeria Badia for Philadelphia," which is, he got not a lot of national press when he opened a few years ago, and we
Sure.
discovered Joe Badia before he was discovered by the nation, the by Gourmet and Bon Appetit and everyone else. And so it's part of our game that we play is we want to find you guys before the rest of the world finds you, before we lose you to the masses. So and I know that you've been all word of mouth. You're not
Sure.
doing any social media. You're not doing anything to promote yourself, and yet Harry says there's lines out the door.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. I've been making pizza since I was a kid. My mother was a chef when I was a kid growing up, so I was always into really good, healthy food, stuff like that, because my mother would do that stuff. Not that I really was interested at a young age. I was busy playing music,
Yeah.
but I was exposed to it. And when I was all over the place, living in LA and Texas, I mean everywhere, I'd work in kitchens, and it was just easy. So when the band wasn't playing, I was in kitchens, and eventually it led me to England. I lived in England for a year, and I used to jump to Italy and first time I had the pizza there, I just fell in love with like it was so different than what I was accustomed to. Um, and I remember this particular pizza had a ton of oil on it, and I remember like picking it up and I was tilting it over, going, "What is all this oil?" And but the flavor was phenomenal, and I was just like, "Wow!" I had no idea that I just stepped into a different world. And I said, "Well, if I ever do it, this is what I'm gonna do."
Was this like brick oven Neapolitan style pizza that
It
you're talking?
was, yes, yes, yeah. Um, and so then it was just I went on a bit of a journey. So, you're used to your hometown pizzerias, which are like corner spots. And I was like, well, they're not doing any of this.
Yeah.
And it just went on this particular journey. I would make pizza at home and, you'd buy the cheese and you'd buy the dough at first and docked up a sauce and go with it. And then you go have someplace that's good and you go, well, they're not doing that. And then that just kind of stumbled into like a 10-year process of trying to figure it all out. And then I would take bread baking classes. I'd read every book on bread I possibly could read, as well as I remember reading your books as well.
Cool. I love it.
And
Yeah.
it was just Funny
So
after I met
basically,
your brother.
you got pulled in like so many others by just being interested and suddenly becoming fascinated.
Well, the funny thing about me is I'm good at a few. I'm really good at a few things. If I don't like it, I'm not interested in. I was taking books on bread that were French, and I was Google translating them into English because I was trying to just find. I have a little bit of a compulsive disorder, if you will, when it's trying to really dive into
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
Um, because I believe if you really want to get great at something, you have to go and check out all possibilities. So it's not like I just found it and this is good enough. No, I have to try every other option and then rule them all out, which takes a lot of time to finally come to something that you go, all right, I dig this.
yeah.
So, that was kind of the journey.
So you go deep. You don't just go.
Nah, if I'm interested, I can't. I have to go deep because then in the back of your mind, there's always this little like voice that's saying, "Did you really check over here? Did you go down that road?" And so for me, it was just like that, which is can be frustrating because when having the restaurant now 10 years, I run into lots of people who say, oh, I make dough. And then we start talking. And I'm like, listen, be careful going down this rabbit hole because
Yeah,
it appears to be easy. It is not easy. And when I first started, I was guilty of that. I go, how difficult could this be?
yeah.
Um, then I went to culinary school. I was French trained. And so I was like, this isn't going to be hard. No, it's very difficult to do it right. And every night's a challenge. That's why I make every pizza. I've been there 10 years. I make every pie. I prep all day, so it's just kind of
So this
it's always
sounds like in many ways sort of a similar journey and path to people like Anthony Mangieri and Chris Bianco, where it's you are the artist, it's your pizzas. You don't have a staff of people cranking them out. You're everyone who has a pizza at Ravanesi's is having one of your pizzas.
correct. Yeah, and it's a difficult process because people say like, why don't you get bigger? Why don't you blow the wall out? Do this. Well, then I start to lose a little bit of control, and we're sold out almost about 10 days in advance, which I think is absolutely crazy to get a pizza
Well,
during.
yeah, you have to stop there for 1 second and explain to people that how do you know that you're sold out? People have to call in advance and order a dough from you, right? A dough ball.
Correct. Only because the dough's a sourdough, as we've talked about. It takes a couple of days to make.
Yeah,
And so I only make so much. Now I'm in the suburbs, so I'm not in the city. So come a certain time of night, it's over. Because I get a lot of people going, why don't you just make more dough? And I say, well, if you want to come out at 9:30 for a pie, I'll make more dough. But so it ends a little bit earlier out there. So there's only so much I can do from
uh,
4:30 until we run out. If people want to keep coming, I'll keep making them. But so I make only about 100 a day, and that's it. Just based upon where we're at.
that's
So
still a lot of pizzas, 100 a day, especially if they're all being made by you. And in one oven, right? You just have one oven.
I have one oven, yes. Yeah.
So that means that you're doing what at the most two pizzas at a time.
I do. I alternate. I alternate because people don't understand. I had an Italian guy in one time, and he's like, "Why don't you have six pies in there?" I said, "I can put six pies in there, but what do I do with the next round? Because the floor is going to be cold, and then
Yeah,
nothing's going to work right because you have a fire in there, and it has to hit. It has to heat up those spots, so you can't just throw pies in there one after another because the bottom, since it being a sourdough and it's a natural yeast."
yeah.
It needs to have a hot spot to get that to start to take the lift that I like. So if
Well,
it's
this is
cold, it doesn't work right.
so two things. You mentioned you've been doing this for 10 years then. It's not an overnight thing. You've been open for 10 years?
I've been 10 years open and I've been making my starters about 20 years old.
Wow.
And yeah, no, I've been doing it a long time. And I rigged my home oven to go over 1,000 degrees so I could mess around in that.
And the
I mean,
and the home is still standing, right?
yeah, well, we had to get rid of the oven though, because my wife couldn't bake cookies in them anymore because they just wouldn't cook right. And so,
Right, because the thermostat you monkeyed with it, yeah. Which
yeah,
so many people have the similar story like that. So getting back there, so you've been open 10 years, you've been perfecting this, you've been just getting the word out just through word of mouth, people telling other people about you.
yeah.
So it's not like your goal is to open many locations. It's this is really about you and your pizza.
Yeah, I mean, I've had people uh want to go bigger and open other things, and I work a lot. I probably work 12, 13, 14-hour days. I mix in a little time for myself with my jiu-jitsu like we talked about,
You
but
do jujitsu and you also do music, so you've got other interests that you dive, and like you said, when you're in, you're all in.
Yeah, and I look at life a little bit different. Everyone likes to chase the almighty dollar, and yes, you have to make a certain amount of money. I get it, but I also say if you're working 7 days a week, 'cause I'm only Tuesday to Saturday, and then when I have a jiu-jitsu tournament, I just close. We just don't book anybody, and I go off and do that kind of thing. But I think you have to enjoy your life. Otherwise, it becomes like a job, and then you start to hate it. And
Yeah.
then I'm taking in my, and I'll tell you, my biggest fear is when I have to take someone's money. So they're coming in, taking their time to come to my place, and they're going to put their hard-earned money down. I have to give them my best that day.
Yeah.
And if you're burnt out and not interested in doing it, I don't feel right doing that. So, and I'm not saying every night I love the pizza, because I have a love-hate relationship. My girls know when I'm like in a really bad mood because the oven's not cooking right, the dough didn't come out the way I wanted. I mean, it's a love-hate relationship,
Yeah.
but at least you can count on that I'm going to give you the best that I can give you that night. Some nights I absolutely love it, and believe me, there's nights I want to hide. It's just not, things aren't, just going the way I want.
So you're baking just a couple of pizzas. I get that idea that you want to protect the integrity of the oven heat and give it so that you're not constantly waiting for it to recover and everything else.
Sure.
So how do people line up to get their pizza? How do they know when to come to get their pizza?
Okay, so originally it was just the whole reserve your dough thing is, it all happened by accident. We would just, I made so much dough in the beginning, and then people would come just like any other place, first come, first serve, and I'd make them. Well, then I started to, well, I got lucky, actually, very lucky. About 2 months after being open, a reporter from the Delaware, I think it was Delaware County Times, came in, had a pizza, did an article, and then it kind of got nuts. So I got very fortunate that I got off to a pretty good
Uh-huh.
start, that I got a
Uh-huh.
little press early on.
Yeah.
So then it was just reserve the dough. But then I would have people call me and go, Dave, I can't get there. By the time I get out of work and I get over there, you have no dough. So I said, all right, I'll put one aside for you. Well, then that thing kind of snowballed into what we have. So then it was, people were just reserving. So I'd have 102 doughs a day, and everyone would call up, hey, Peter, give me 4, give me 5, give me this. There'd be people outside at 3 o'clock, and we opened at 4:30. So the line went down the end of the building,
Wow.
and that's kind of how it went. And it was nuts for, many years. And then COVID hit. Well,
Yeah.
now I'm like, what do I do? Because I didn't do takeout at that time. It was just all dine in.
Right, because this is like wood-fired brick oven pizza that you
Yeah,
want to have.
it really doesn't like to go in a
Yeah, it's
box.
not a box style pizza. Yeah.
It's right. So COVID hits. My girls are like, what are we going to do? I go, I don't know what we're going to do. And so I started thinking about it. I got a bunch of emails from people. I know you hate takeout. Please just do the takeout. Because I was thinking of just like, I'll wait it out, not knowing what, how long
Yeah, how
this.
long it's gonna be. Yeah.
So I said, all right, I'll think about it. And then I finally said, all right, we'll do it. We were sold out a month at a time. It was ridiculous. Like, it was insane. I felt bad. Someone would call and yeah, in a month you can get a pizza. It's, it was silly.
Really, I mean, people had to wait that long to get on for a dough to become available for them.
Yes, because I was going from 4:30 when we opened to 10 o'clock at night making pies.
So now you're making more pizzas than you were even when you were,
A little
oh,
bit more, yeah. But eventually, it's just because it was like a grind. So then what happened was we went to reservations. So you would say, "Hey, Peter, at 4:30, give me 6." Or Peter, and then we just
yeah,
spread it out. I can only make 5 to 6 every 15 minutes that I feel comfortable putting them out right. And so then that went. So then the whole day would be gone. And they'd say, like, in a month you get a pizza. So I'd have people upset with me, like, "Who the hell's this guy think he is?" I go, "There's only so many I can make, you know." But I'm very fortunate. I have the best customer base. They're all like family. We have probably 60 people that are regulars that are every week
yeah.
locked.
That's what my brother told me when he was in there having his pizza. He said that he felt like everybody else in there was a regular. They all seemed to know you. You knew them, and he wanted to be part of that club.
No, it's a giant family. I prefer it. And plus it's a little place, which you don't need everyone. Not that you don't
Yeah,
want everyone,
yeah.
but the people that don't get it, don't want to get it, don't like me, whatever. I don't lose any sleep. I do what I do. If that fits in and you appreciate it, I'm very grateful. But you just do what you can do, and I don't really worry about
So
it.
it's kind of found its own life, its own way, and you
For the
figured
most
it
part.
out as you went. So, and it's working for you. You found a nice balance. It sounds like to me, what you're saying is you have a good life work balance between, how hard you're working there, but still have time for your other interests.
For
But
sure.
but on top of that, you're making pizza maybe the hardest way. You're using natural leavening, sourdough, which is a big trend right now. You're the trend is here now. It's no longer coming.
For
And
sure.
you're in with Dan Richer and Anthony Mangieri and other people who are pioneering the what I think is the most important trend in the pizza industry right now, which is sourdough or wild yeast fermentation. So,
No,
but
I
that's more
agree.
complicated, more things could go wrong. You got one more thing for you to have to watch over. And
100.
if I'm not mistaken, you also are pulling your own cheese every day.
I do, yeah. Well, because what happens is you go to these places and you go, wow, their cheese is phenomenal. And then you go, where do you get your cheese? And they go, well, we make it. And I'm like, you make it. And so then you
Yeah.
know they're not buying it because it tastes too good. You
Yeah.
got to remember, like fresh mozzarella. Well, technically, this is fior di latte because it comes from a cow. It's not
Yeah.
mozzarella, it's
Yeah.
buffalo, right?
Right.
So it's really fior di latte. But if you taste cheese that's store bought or you buy it from your purveyor, if you're a restaurant, who knows when it was made? I
Yeah.
find after 3 days it loses its magic. So I make about 50 pounds a day. Some will carry over the next day. And then, so it's only like if you're eating cheese at my place, it's maybe I made it yesterday.
And is that
Um,
the only cheese you use? Is that fior di latte that you've made yourself? Or are you adding other
I
cheeses?
No other. Well, I do. I get wheels of Parmigiano Reggiano. I grind
Uh-huh.
that, and then I use that as well. So it's a
So,
blend, very light blend of the Reggiano, but it's mostly, yeah, it's mostly, Fior di like
it's all
mozzarella.
fresh mozzarella, some Parmesan, and no pizza, no low moisture mozzarella, no pizza cheese.
No, 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 no. It's funny when someone comes in and they want a well done pizza. I actually get annoyed because one, why don't I just go to the local Acme and go buy dough so I can burn the heck out of this? Because you want
Yeah.
some crispy pizza in an oven, so you can't all you taste is burnt. And but more importantly than that, so you like it a little crispy, that's fine. I'll try to get as best I can because my dough has a bit of a higher hydration, so it's tough to make a crispy pizza with this style.
Right.
Um, but even saying I can get there, the cheese, because of the heat, will start to separate. So people don't realize this. Like on your local pizza places and cheese, and you see that a little bit of grease that people kind of blot.
Yeah.
That's really the cheese separating. It's the oils and the cheese separating. And
Right.
I don't like the cheese to get there. I think it tastes best when it's just melted and it's nice at its creamiest point
And the oil's still in the cheese.
and not separating. But
Yeah.
there's some people, I was a starving musician for many years, and I'm like, I'm stubborn. I'm going to do it my way. And the guy wants it that way. And I'm getting older. I go, all right. I said, I wouldn't do that, but if that's how you want it, for a
Well,
few of my
for the
regulars,
most part, yeah, you want your customers to be happy, but you also know that I have a way of doing it. You all seem to like it. Don't ask me to go into your wheelhouse and stay in my wheelhouse for a little bit.
yeah, and the funny thing is, you got people that come in and they want to change how you're doing it, like, because I like it this way. And then I go, all right, I'll accommodate you. So I do it. And they go, I probably should have listened to you.
Yeah,
I go,
right.
I'm trying
Exactly.
to tell you.
Well, let's step back a bit and go through the process because while we have you here, I want to find out what the choices are that you are making along the way. First of all, let's talk about the oven. Did you build this oven yourself?
No, I haven't. I'll believe I have to thank Anthony for that because I went to New York and I saw his
Anthony
oven.
Mangieri?
Yeah, I fell in love with that oven. It just looks so unique.
Yeah.
Because I worked in different ovens before, but nothing that looked like that. So I found out that that's an Acunto, and
Okay.
Acunto. I said I have to have one, and so I have an Acunto oven. They've been making them since 1892. Um, and mind you, Anthony's dough is phenomenal, as you know. It's
He's
ridiculous
been
how good
doing it a little bit longer than you, but
his dough is fantastic. Absolutely loved it. But yeah, the oven just was so cool, and it sets a different look for an oven. And I said I got to have one of those. And I
would you
was
say
talking
that?
to.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, would you say that he is one of the models, role models for you in terms of your style of pizza and your approach to pizza?
Yeah, because I was making pies and doing it, but then I started to get into sourdoughs, and that's actually how I found him because he was doing a naturally leavened dough. And I said, "Oh, here's a guy doing it, so let me go check this out." And so
Yeah.
because I was talking to, and we talked about this before, Tony Gimignani, and he was nice enough. I don't know if it was 20 years ago or something. I emailed him, and he was kind enough to call me back. And so I talked to him for like 2 hours. What a heck of a guy, this guy. He didn't
Yeah.
know me from anyone, and I'm a thousand. I'm like a little kid with a million questions. And I was talking about sourdoughs with him, And he
Yeah.
was like, they're not doing that over there. So I got a little like discouraged. I'm like, what do you mean they're not doing sourdough? This is, I think, the best way to do this.
Yeah.
And he was like, they're not doing that at the time. And then I had found Anthony and I said, here's a guy doing it. So I
And
didn't
he's
think, I
doing
was
it.
like,
Yeah.
because
Well,
I
when he,
thought I was going down the wrong path because everyone's not doing it.
right.
And who am I to go now, um, change the way things are done? But that's where
Right.
my mind was.
Well, you were onto something. You were ahead of the curve, so to speak. And when he was doing, when Anthony kind of broke, through 20 years ago in New York as Una Pizza Napolitana, and people were calling him the pizza Nazi because he wouldn't
Sure.
change anything. But he was ahead of the curve too, and I think that that's important because sometimes you have to go your own way and be true to what it is that you believe in. And now, of course, even Tony Gemignani's doing. Everyone's doing sourdough pizzas now because those of us who know dough understand that you can't get better tasting flavor in your dough than through natural fermentation. There's just no
100.
yeast is wonderful, it works, makes great, reliable pizzas, but you can't get the depth of flavor if you don't do natural.
No, I agree because I'm really uh, I love a pouliche. There's nothing better than a pouliche for me. And
Uh,
like when you let that ferment overnight and you smell that in the morning, it's
you're
intoxicating.
talking about like a sourdough pouliche, a
No,
sponge.
like a yeasted one,
Oh, a
like a
yeast one. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, because that's how I started doing it
Oh, I
originally.
see.
Because I was baking breads and I was like, oh my god, this smells unbelievable.
Right. So this is like the evolution of your dough is starting with the yeasted sponge method.
Well, I never did a direct method. I mean, I tried it once, and I'm like, "There's no way you're getting good flavor from a direct method. This
Yeah.
just, it's not happening. It's with a limited fermentation, it's not going to work." So then I
Right.
started getting into an indirect method and going down that road. But that's before sourdough hit. So then
Yeah.
I would love a bread. I'd bake breads, and I'd love it with the pouliche. And I've done bigas, whatever, different hydrations, Um, because they take on different flavors. If it's a little drier of your starter, more like a dough than it is more like a batter.
Yeah.
Um, but I fell in love with the pouliche, so I started making pizza with it. I'm like, no, I don't like this. This is not working how I thought this was going to work. I love this in
Interesting.
bread. I don't
Yeah.
like it in pizza.
Interesting. Most people wouldn't be able to tell the difference, but you somehow you knew you had a vision for what you were going for.
I was
And
looking for a certain flavor for sure.
uh-huh.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely going after certain flavors, and I even have different techniques that I use with the sourdough to come to the flavor that I prefer.
So can you talk a little bit about your sourdough then? Is it a spongy starter? Is it a firm starter? What style
No,
do
it's more like a batter.
about really wet, like a pouliche in a way?
Yeah, absolutely. Like how it's ready. There's these little bubbles, and there's like a little trail running through it,
Uh-huh.
and it kind of lets me know where we're
And do
at.
you keep do you have a couple different starters going, keeping them like for
I
different days
used
of the
to.
week?
I used to, but I found that they're super hardy. So I've read all these books on how easy it is to make a sourdough starter. I find it never to be easy. I don't know what it is. The pH bottoms out, whatever happens. I never find it to be easy. So when people start talking about, oh, it's easy, I'm like, who are you lying to? I just don't find it easy personally. And
Right.
I would start with rye flour because that's a nutrient, enriched flour, right?
Yeah.
And I would start that way with maybe a little bit of honey. I've done them with a little bit of pineapple juice, not real sugar. I mean, I'm talking about like natural sweet,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
not
Just
artificial.
you're talking about just getting the starter going from the
Just
beginning.
getting it going. And I found what's best for me was rye flour doing them. I could make them pretty easily with rye, but I've
Yeah.
tried the wheats and all. And then I incorporate the 00 later after I get it going. Then I kind of,
And
work it
now
from.
that you've got it established, now you can just
I do it.
perpetuate it
Correct.
each day after you make your dough, you feed the starter so it's ready for the next day.
Yeah, so mine's like done on a 2-day process. So it's just they're smaller builds until
Yeah.
I finally get
Okay.
till I make the dough.
I
And
see. So
then
you're building it up in stages to get to
yes. Yeah.
okay.
And
That
then after I throw it in the mixer, I literally just take a little spoon, put it in a container, and off we go. I take it on vacation. I don't like to refrigerate it because I find I
ah
think if I say this correct, the flora. Well, sometimes you can lose its flavor
interesting.
when it gets under a certain temperature. So, like a refrigerator is at 40 degrees or 38 degrees. I would leave it on the door if I was like flying somewhere. But if I was driving, it came with me. It was like a little pet.
Yeah,
And
yeah. And, yeah, and and it is like a pet. I mean, you brought this thing into life. It's a living organism, so to speak, and now you're and it's sustaining you because it's providing the the pizza for your livelihood.
Yeah, I almost killed it once though in 20 years. My wife's like, we're going to the beach. So they go to the New Jersey shore. Saturday night I finish. All right, I'll be down Sunday. So I got it all ready, fed it in the morning, packed it up, put it in my bag, get down the shore. She's like, all right, come on, we're going to the beach. I'm like, I just got here. Let me get settled. She goes, no, come on, get your bait. Come on, we're going. So we go.
Uh-oh.
I don't know what happened. A day and a half later, I go, you see my starter? It was still in the bag.
Oh
I'm like,
boy.
I go, oh no. Fed it, came right back. I was like, oh, thank
What
God.
do you give your starter a name?
I have not. I
Because
have
you're one of
not.
the few people that hasn't named it. Once you name it, of course, then it is your pet. And then I had a
Everyone
friend who
knows, stay away from it though.
I had a friend that when I was teaching at the Providence campus of Johnson and Wales, and he named his starter Kenny because his best friend's name was Kenny. And every day he'd have his students, he'd say, "Okay, now build the starter, put this much of the starter, hold some back, and we'll rebuild that part, but make your bread." And one day after the student made the bread, he said, "Okay, go feed Kenny." And we said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "The part you held back." He says, "I didn't hold any back. I threw it all in the dough." And my friend goes, "You killed Kenny." And the whole class starts laughing because they watch South Park. He doesn't. He didn't know what they were laughing at. He thought he got really mad. And he said, he killed Kenny. And he calls me. I'm in the classroom down the hall, and he calls me. He says, they just killed Kenny. And he explains what happened. So I said, I'll tell you what, I'll get you up and running. I'll give you some of my starter, and he basically, I said, you got Kenny Jr. now. But
That's funny.
so if there was backup, we were backed up. But that's the thing I was going to ask you with your starter. If you only have one and you don't have a backup guy, that you kind of alternate with, then you got to watch out.
That's true. And only in the 10 years, one time, my buddy called me. He was in a bad place, and I'm talking to him while I'm making dough.
Hmm.
So I didn't want to hang up on him and say, listen, I'm in the middle of making dough, because he was kind of in a spot. He needed to talk. So I'm talking him on speaker, and I'm running around the kitchen trying to get ready. I forget to save a piece of this,
Ah,
my
there you go. Yeah.
so, and I had just started to fill up the bucket that it came in with water. And on the top of the edge of it, because I had poured it in, there was just like a little bit. And
Yeah.
I just took a knife and just grabbed a little speck of it. And you'd
Just
be
enough.
surprised how
Yeah.
very little you need,
That's right.
to move it along.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's
Like,
great that you thought of that. Okay, so we got the starter going. So let's keep going with this pizza because
sure.
I'm already starting to imagine what it's going to taste like in my mind. So you build your dough. You're using you said a 00 style flour to
I
make
use
the
a
pizza?
00. Yeah. When I'm in
Okay.
Italy, I try to get to the factory. I like Caputo. I've tried them. I've tried many other brands.
Uh-huh.
Some of them tend to be a little bit gummy, if you will.
Uh-huh.
I like Caputo.
You found the flour that works for you. And
It
again, we're
does.
working in this authentic Neapolitan style, the Naples style of pizza. So it's going to be you said fairly high hydration.
It is for the most part, but also my customer base, they don't like a soupy center,
Uh-huh.
which is traditional Neapolitan. Nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that. So when I first opened, I did it more traditional, and people in my area, but can you cook the pizza a little more? So for me to get the whole structure that I want in the crust, it needs a
Yeah.
certain hydration to get that. So I'm always balancing a fine line about giving you know, my customers what they want, but yet still keeping it true to what I want.
Right.
I find that more difficult. Like if I just said to myself, like if I was in a city, I'm just going to make it how I want it, and that's it. I'd make it high hydration. It could be soupy, and you got enough people to pull from. But because
Yeah.
I have such a family-oriented area,
Yeah.
I'm trying to walk a fine line between, because they all want to pick it up. I
Yeah.
mean,
They want to be able to
and
hold the slice and not have they don't want to have to fold it up like a sandwich like they do in Naples.
yes. So I'm always kind of balancing a little fine line there. So the hydration isn't always as high as I would want. Most of the time, it's a pretty good mix, though.
What would you say if do you have a sense of what percentage of hydration you do work in?
Yeah, it probably ranges because, as you know, you don't know if you're having like a summer wheat, winter wheat in the bag. Certain flour absorbs water differently, even though it comes from the same bag, it may not absorb exactly the same.
Right.
So, you know, it ranges anywhere from 57 to 60.
Really?
Um,
Okay. So it's
yeah,
not real sticky dough then, is it, or is it?
it depends. It depends.
Oh,
Some
because
days
you've
it's
also got also got your starter, which is very wet. So,
correct.
and what percentage of starter goes in? Well, don't say anything that's part of your, proprietary technique.
It's funny
But,
you
but
say that.
but I
I
think you
put
know that it doesn't matter whether you tell everybody exactly how you do it. No one's going to be able to do it like you do.
Well,
But
I will
can you
say this.
tell?
I had a chef of mine so when I went to culinary school. He's like, so what do you know, how do you, I go, listen, you're a chef, you know this. You do what tastes right to you. I do what tastes right to me.
Yeah.
So you can go as little as 5%, you can go to 25%. That's a personal preference.
Uh-huh.
I use a different number or somewhere in between in there that
Yeah.
works that works for what I'm trying to do. But there's
Yeah.
really, listen, there's really not a right or wrong answer to that. I think, though, in the process of making dough, yes, there are steps that have to be done correctly, or you're not going to have the best final product for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as if you like it more soury, then make a drier starter. You know, it'll have more of a soury taste. If you don't want it, so make it more of a battery thing or lighter.
Maybe.
I like it
Yeah.
more on the lighter side.
Well, you just answered a question that a lot of people ask me is how can I get more sour in my sourdough breads and pizza doughs? And I just this last week I was at Pizza University in Washington D.C. and this question came up and I said, well, one thing you can try is, maybe instead of working with a spongy starter, make a firm starter and give it,
Correct.
time to ripen that way. But so that's been your experience as well, that
Oh,
a firmer starter
absolutely.
gives more sour flavor.
Yeah, and my dough is at room temperature for 2 days, like because they're
So it
done
never
on
goes in the
wheels.
fridge the whole time after you've balled them up and everything?
Once I make a ball, I do refrigerate them only because I'm going to make some at 4:30 and then some at 9.
I
And it
see.
depends how humid it is. If it's cool in the room, then it doesn't matter. But if it's hot, then they'll kind of slack out, and I don't want that. So then
Yeah,
I only after a dough ball. But for your viewers, you either can make a firm starter, or you can make your dough and retard it in the refrigeration
yeah,
because with sourdoughs, they're going to pick up more acidity the
that's
longer
right.
they stay, the longer they ferment, and the colder they sit.
Yeah,
You're going to have more of a soury taste if that's what you go. I personally don't like that. I think because then it takes away. I'm trying. You have five senses in your mouth. I'm trying to play off them, and if one's overpowering the other, I think I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. And so that's kind of and I learned that from culinary school, which was fantastic, is that you're trying to play a little music when
yeah,
you take a bite. And when
yeah,
they start hitting off those different senses, I think that's when whatever it is you're eating that you go, wow, that's really cool. Otherwise, you have one, you like onions and the whole thing's onions, only one sense is going nuts. And,
yeah.
it's
You're
not the
looking
best.
for harmonies and not just the single note. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, so we know now that you've got a dough and the dough, it's a 2-day process. It sits out over time to ferment and develop flavor. You form the dough balls the day before or the day
Oh,
of
that morning.
that morning. So then you decide what needs to be chilled and what doesn't to control
Sure.
time. And how big are the dough balls? So when someone orders your pizza, is it one size or is it two sizes?
I do 14-inch. So I would like to go a little lighter on the dough, but because we're in America and everyone likes
Yeah.
piling stuff on them,
Yeah.
I use a 10-ounce dough ball.
10 ounces at 14 inches. So
Yes.
I'm just trying saying all these things so that people can visualize
Sure.
what the pizza will be when they come into Ravanesi's.
No,
Which, by the
sure.
way, if you're going to go to Ravanesi's, make sure you call ahead and reserve a dough, right?
Yeah, I feel bad. Yeah, here's the thing. Don't tell anybody. But if you're from like out of town and never coming back,
Yeah.
sometimes that works.
That happened to my brother because he stumbled in without knowing any of these rules, and he said, and they had an extra dough ball for me, so he felt like he got lucky.
I mean, listen, you're in the business of serving people, so you try to accommodate. It's not, some people think you try to be difficult. It's not that way at all. As if
Yeah,
believe me when I tell you, if we can do it, we do it. And if
Uh-huh.
we can't, we can't. And but that's not the way we are.
I
Because
hear
believe
you.
me, I'm
So
flattered. I'm flattered that people are driving from Maryland or whatever to come and get a pizza. Believe me, if I
yeah,
can do it, I want to do it because
but a 14-inch pizza is not your conventional Neapolitan pizza. It's a little bigger. It's a wider
yeah,
diameter. It's more
yes.
like a pizzeria style pizza. So you've got a larger pizza going in the oven. What kinds of pizzas can they get when they come in, and what's the menu like?
Well, it's only 7 pizzas, and,
Uh,
they go from traditional margherita to a marinara. We have a supersada picante, which is a spicy, like supersada. Everyone calls it a pepperoni, but it's not. It's supersada.
it's
It's
instead of pepperoni.
yes,
It's real
correct.
pepperoni. It's the real deal. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a pepperoni fan. I think it adds more grease. I know. I do. I like supersada. We do a salsiccia, which is sausage and onion. Uh,
Sausage. Yeah.
yeah, we do a filete,
You
which is sliced tomatoes on
you
a
make
white
that
piece.
sausage, or do you get a local
I
sausage?
used to, I don't anymore, but I have the company I get it from, it's fresh. It comes in fresh every like twice a week. It's great. So no, that's it. I mean, I used to do it because I learned that in school and I used to
Yeah,
make it. It's not
fun to
difficult
make.
to make.
Yeah.
It's just time consuming. It really comes down to
Right.
that. Um, and I used to make all kinds of stuff. Like I used to make a fig jam with fontina cheese and do all that. But I found that not when I opened though, but these little test things that I would do,
Yeah.
I just found the majority of the folks weren't going for that. So I try to be, listen, it's a business. So I try to be lean. I try not to have all this extra stuff. I try to make sure I can make it. I don't want to have these ingredients that just sit around and they don't get used because they're
Yeah.
only occasionally used. So for some people that upsets them because they want some other stuff. And I understand that. But I've settled on these 7 and like I roast peppers, nothing like roasted red peppers out of an oven opposed to
Yeah.
buying them.
Nice.
Everyone likes to buy everything, don't. And another thing is a tidbit that I would suggest, and I always tell this to folks, whenever you buy stuff that's cut up, it's already losing a little bit of its flavor. So if you can buy stuff whole and then work its way down, I think you'll get the best products out of whatever you use.
So, yeah, obviously, and even with the cheese, as soon as you shred or grate cheese, you're already losing,
Well,
40% of the flavor right there.
and that's why I buy wheels, and then we just grate it as we grate it like a day.
And then with the cheese that you've pulled, so you take cheese curds, you pull them in, form them into balls, and then you just cut them as you go. You tear off pieces as you go.
No, so so for instance, as anyone may know or may not know, fresh mozzarella should never be refrigerated. It's really not fresh after it's refrigerated, in my
Uh-huh.
opinion. In my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
So when I make the cheese, it's almost like Pavlov's dog. Like I'll go, anyone want cheese? And the girls come running in because if you ever
Yeah.
have fresh cheese out of a bowl, it almost looks like taffy as you're stretching
Yeah.
the cheese.
Yeah. It's
There's nothing
amazing.
like it. There's
Yeah.
nothing.
Amazing.
So if I was to serve it fresh, I would not refrigerate it. But because it's going to go into 1,000-degree oven, I make it into I make them into logs, not balls.
Excellent.
Then we chill them. Then I wrap them and I put them in the refrigerator. As soon as they set, then I'll cut them. And I just cut them in. You know, I always say they're like little pinky finger size.
Yeah, and you just and
And
and,
then
and
I
when
grill.
when you referred to the girls a few times, is this your staff you're talking about?
Yes, the best. Yeah,
So how many people are working there? What do they do?
well, we have about 17.
Oh, 17.
But yeah, I've only none of them like to work a lot. I get like them 1 day a week, 2 days a
Yeah.
week.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah, so
part-timers. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I have all
They
part-timers.
want to come in and eat some fresh cheese is what they want.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, but they're the best. I mean, we have the biggest thing is it's all like a big family there.
Yeah.
I let them, they get to be themselves. They know what I like. The pizza, I could care less. The phone's ringing, let the phone ring, put the pizza out hot. And they know my little, quirks that,
Yeah,
make
right.
them nuts. But
You've gotten used to each other basically. And
yeah, they tolerate me.
what about salads? Do you serve salads?
No.
No, so only pizzas. There's nothing else on the
Only
menu.
only pizza. Yeah, I only have about 28 seats. So if we started putting salads and I had maybe an
Okay.
app and
You
stuff like
keep it
that.
real simple. It's all about the pizza.
It is. Now, if you want a salad, we do have a rosso verde, which is arugula. Comes on with roasted red peppers, and when they come out of the oven, we top it with arugula, oil, salt, and pepper. You can get a salad that way, but
Okay. So exactly. So we're kind of diving in here, trying to squeeze as many secrets as we can out of you of what you're doing there. You've got a 14-inch pizza. there's no, that's it. It's all about the pizza. Um, there was one other question that popped into my head. You mentioned a couple of the different styles of pizza, uh, wine, beer, soft drinks. What do
It's a
people drink?
it's a BYOB. So you can bring in whatever you want. We've had people roll in coolers, bars. I'm pretty laid back. Some lady called me one time. She's like, "Can I bring a salad?" I go, "Whatever you want, whatever you want to do." So she comes in with a giant bowl
Yeah,
with a spinner.
that's
She's standing on the chair spinning the salad. I'm like, lady, I said be discreet. And she's got a giant bowl standing up there, pounding on the thing, spinning.
that's
I'm like, the
great.
girls are looking at me and you agreed to this? I go, well, I didn't think she was bringing this.
Well, she took the family thing seriously.
She did. She did. So, yeah, we don't listen. Listen, the thing is, it's pizza. I take it very serious, but at the end of the day, it's pizza. It's not, um, we're pretty laid back. We have a good time. People that get upset, and crazy, I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You're coming out for a pizza."
I
I
know.
it
It's funny
drives me
how
a little.
things can go from being a fun, passionate thing to becoming like, like rules and laws and it's right and wrong.
I mean, I
Uh,
think Anthony was right. I think Anthony had like a Bill of Rights on the wall
yeah.
up at his first look. I think he is right there, though. There is some things you just can't
I,
do.
I think one of the rules was do not ask for pepperoni or something like that. Yeah.
I do think that's right. I do think there should be a Bill of Rights, but because some people just have no idea and they're just killing it. Like you can't
Right.
ask for pineapple. Don't ask for pineapple.
Don't, all right. No pineapple in your pizzeria. Now, just to complete the cycle. So, you've got the oven. How hot? You said 1,000. Are you really setting
Well,
running at 1,000 degrees?
the overall temperature is 1,000. So the floor could be 9, the dome's probably
How long
11,
do they bake for?
90 seconds.
That's it. So it's a real, truly Neapolitan style. It's not a 3 minute or 4 minute bake. It's a 90-second bake.
Yes, and that's why we only do 5 to 6 every 15 minutes. I find that's about how quick I can turn them around and make them like in Naples. They just spit them out like nothing, but they're
Right.
barely cooked though. They're very lightly
And
cooked.
people are used to folding their pizzas and eating it either like a sandwich or eating it with a knife and fork. But you said you get a little bit of crispness in yours. So how in 90 seconds, how do you get it to where its slice will hold itself up?
Sometimes it holds itself up. Um,
You also supply knives and forks if they need it.
Correct, correct. Well, that goes back to what I was saying about I don't have quite the hydration that I would want. So I'm walking this fine line where I can still keep it tender and still have it Neapolitan, but yet you some days depends. If it's super humid, it may not work. But um, after the first bite, yes, you can pick it up. I have
Yeah,
some people that want it traditional, and so what I'll do is I'll crank the oven up a little bit because it's all wood, and I'll throw it to the back of the oven. It'll cook in 60 seconds or so, and
really.
provided this is another thing that drives me nuts too with the mozzarella when I'm making it. If the curd is super creamy, it melts perfect.
Yeah.
It doesn't brown, nothing. If that's drier because the cows were eating certain things, maybe they weren't grazing, maybe they were eating more grains, whatever the case may be, and the curd's a little drier, the cheese won't melt as fast. So then days I have to cut the cheese a little thinner than I would like because if someone wants it traditional, so you got to remember, sometimes if that cheese isn't melting right, I can't take it out of the oven, not melted. So I got to move it away from the fire.
Yeah.
I have to do different things to get that to work. And that's why I make all of them myself. It's
Yeah. It's like playing jazz. You're constantly having to respond to what's going on
well,
around you.
yes, so if considering if all things were perfect, you wanted it Neapolitan, I could throw it to the back of the oven, 60 seconds, you'll get it kind of soft and the way it should be. But so there's just little things you got to do that
Do you have a particular kind of basil that you like to use on
I
your pizza?
I do. I love Israeli basil.
Israeli. So you bring it in from Israel.
Yes,
What's different about it?
well, this Produce Junction that's down the street from me. They're always when I first started going there, they'd be like, "Why don't you use the Colombian?" I go, "I don't want the Colombian. I want the Israeli." He goes, "We don't have Israeli." I go, "Well, order the Israeli." And I go, "Well, don't you order it every day?" He goes, "Well, they don't pick it all the time that way. They go by price." I go, "I don't care what the price is. I want Israeli." And so we went, but now I know them, so they're fine. So I just called them. I go, "Do you have it?" And they go, "We have it." And but what's interesting about those leaves, they're very tender. And when you open a box, they come in like a 1 kilo box.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And when you open it, it fills the whole room with this unbelievable
Mm,
scent of basil.
mm.
It's
Yeah,
incredible. Yeah. I think if you can find local basil that tastes like basil, that's fine. There's like, you don't have to go nuts. But when you get into like Colombian and South American basil, sometimes they're like a hybrid. And if you notice when you smell them, they smell like mint. And
yeah,
so, they're good for cooking, but for certain cooking, I don't want that on my pizza. It just
I
has
see.
it has a different taste that I personally don't like. I don't, not that it's wrong. It's
Yeah.
just something that I don't like. So if I can get Israeli, I opt for that.
So over these 10 years of kind of fine tuning and honing your pizza, you've got you've narrowed it down to these are the ingredients are like, these are the kind of way I like my cheese. I mean, that can only come from putting in those 20,000 hours of repetition and doing it over and over again. Do you ever get tired of it?
Um, I think what makes it difficult sometimes is, you're dealing with the public every night, and
That's the hardest part sometimes. Yeah.
besides making the dough and that coming out right, the second hardest is dealing with, the customers. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and I think this is fairly accurate. 99% of the people that come in are absolutely fantastic. You always get occasionally someone
Yeah.
that, and I tell the girls, I say, listen, it's one person. Do not let them ruin, because just there's people, you don't know what's going on in their life. I'm trying to think of a way like, okay, maybe something's gone wrong, something's not right. Maybe they don't like me. They don't want to wait. They don't want to call a week in advance, whatever it is.
Or they have something else going on in their life that you can't
Absolutely.
control. Yeah. Yeah.
But I've
Well,
learned over time, I control what I can control. I can't control them. And so I don't really worry, but not anymore, it doesn't bother me. But
does your jujitsu practice help you with that kind of thing? That's a very centering kind of activity.
listen, at my gym, you get killed. They could care less. I make pizza. I have to tap fast if when someone's trying to rip my arm off.
It's serious stuff, huh?
Listen, I got to work tonight. I need to leave with two arms,
Right.
Um,
But what does
yeah,
that bring? Why do you do it? It's an intense activity. It's physically demanding. But what are you getting out of it that you feel adds to who you are as a person?
Well, one, I love a challenge. So even since I was a kid, someone says you can't do something, that just perks my attention, and I have to figure it out. I will say the first time I tried jujitsu and another human being held me down in a spot and I could not move, I said I never want to feel like that again. And I'll tell you, if you've never grappled with someone like a wrestler or someone who does jujitsu, you can be pretty helpless. And it's
Uh-huh.
a feeling I never want to ever experience again. And that kind of set the tone. We see a lot of people kind of come in and leave and whatnot because it's a very humbling adventure when there's girls that can wrap you up into a pretzel and you think, I'm a guy. There's girls that they'll tie you up in a pretzel and they can break your arm as fast as you can like blink.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But I think for me, the challenge, the camaraderie, the people that do jujitsu, it's like a cult. As
Uh-huh.
much as we're trying to kill each other in a nice way,
Yeah.
it's hugs afterwards. It's a
Yeah.
really it's like a chess match, a human chess match. But the people that do it, through my experience, I have not met anyone that has pushed me away from this sport. Um, it's unbelievable. I got a tournament coming up in June up in New Jersey. I've won at Vegas the end of August. Um, it's like you're trying to it's just competing, but I think for life, I think the one important aspect you can take from it is you learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable,
Uh-huh.
which I think is good for life because life can be an uncomfortable place. And if you get used to being comfortable in whatever circumstance gets thrown your way, I think that's a good thing, and I think more people should do it. I think because it'll change your life. It
Yeah.
really will.
Well, that's a great credo. Yeah. Learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
I wish I made it up, but I heard it somewhere.
But it puts you in a position of having to always be willing to get outside your comfort zone, so to speak.
Listen, that's the only way you grow. And if you're getting into the making pizza, to tie it back to that keep pushing those. Don't just settle for what you think is okay.
Yeah.
Keep pushing. I mean, I made dough for 2 years straight. Every other day I made dough. My wife wanted to kill me. I mean, she was like, I'm sick of dough with
Yeah.
with the salts at 1.8 to 2%. to this hydration, mixing these. She goes, I can't even tell the difference anymore. But I say, if you really want to get good at it, get rid of your, mixer, use your hands, because your hands are going to tell you everything.
Uh-huh.
You make dough with your hands first. You can use a mixer later,
Yeah.
but learn to know what you want to feel. And after you get through that and you can feel it when it's dry, when it's wet, do I need more flour? Do I need more water? Or I
Yeah.
said, use your hands. And that, that's, I think, the best way to get good at this. But be patient and take a lot of notes.
Well, before we run out of time, I want to ask you one more question, and that is the
Sure.
third part of your sort of life balance is the music. You've got a deep background in music. You've been a professional musician. You've written a lot of songs that are published. There's a band called Whiskey Six that's playing your music all over the internet. What are you still doing music, and what's your instrument? And how does music fit into that puzzle?
So I've been playing music since I was about 14. Moved to LA when I was 19 or 20 with my buddy. We said, oh, let's go to LA. And we were in a rock band. And so we went out to LA because that was the craze at the time. We'll go, let's,
Sure.
let's, do, let's do LA.
What year was LA, would you say?
Um, Maybe 89,
Oh, back
89,
in the 80s. Okay.
89,
We're
90,
not
something
talking
like
about the Buffalo Springfield era like I would have been in LA.
that. I mean, I'm old, but
Yeah, but not as old as me. Yeah.
we look the same age. um, So I got into that, and then so I'm from Boston originally, moved to
Uh,
LA, and years later I ended up in Texas, and I started getting into country music,
uh,
and so I went from rocks. I sang for a guy, Steve Tyrell, who did a bunch of movie scores back in the day. He said, "You belong in Nashville. You don't belong out here. You have more of a Nashville sound." I go, like, I'm from Boston. What are you talking about?
yeah, well,
Yeah, so
it'd
years
be a
later I
great
ended up.
hybrid.
Well, it's a little different running around the South as a northerner.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's a different story. Um, but so, long story short, I was writing songs, and then eventually just started recording stuff like that, and I came very close to getting things happening, but they didn't. And a buddy of mine in Boston, my buddy George, he was like, "We're doing a country thing," and I finally, because he wasn't in the country. When I told him I was doing country, he was like, "Country, come on." Now he's got the biggest country band in Boston, Whiskey
Is that
Six.
right?
Oh my God,
Whiskey
yeah.
Six, yeah, because it's kind of a country rock band, right?
Yes, yes, yeah. So I finally, he came over to the countryside years later, and anyway, so he goes, "We're gonna do some songs." He goes, "We don't have a lot of country songs at the time." And I said, "Dude, just take whatever you want from mine, do whatever you want with them." So I've been fortunate that they like a bunch of the stuff that I had done, and
Can you can you hear this? Can you hear music coming through? This is one of your songs. This is called "Addicted."
oh, addicted. Yeah, they've done that one too.
Okay, I'm going to cut it off before let's just go here. The singer singing.
It's funny. Is that from them, Whiskey Six?
That's Whiskey Six. It's off their website. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a girl singer. So I did it obviously originally. And he has had some great singers. They got a girl right now that's fantastic. And I don't know who did that one, that particular one, that version. But yeah, so writing. And so currently, believe it or not, I met just from making pizza. I've met a couple of folks that are tied to Sony Music up in New York.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to them right now about possibly putting something out maybe in the summertime, which is
Oh,
crazy that pizza is bringing me back to music
it's funny how
possibly.
things work like that. Hey, look, Anthony Mangieri has a regular recurring role in that TV series Billions, and
Does he really?
it's all because he plays a pizza guy, in Billions, who's become a character in the show. So you never
Well,
know.
you never know. And, and through food, you can touch people for sure. Um,
Yeah,
so who knows? I take one day at a time.
yeah.
I try to live. It's funny. I'd written a song called "What Are You Living For?" And it's basically about, time moves very fast. And I think people don't realize that. I think young people don't realize that. I think they think, when you're young, I have all the time
Yeah,
in the world. Well,
yeah,
you blink, and next thing you know, you're 30 years older.
that's right.
So I say, seize the day, go live it,
Yeah,
chase it.
yeah.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes. The worst thing you could ever have is at the end, you wish you coulda, woulda, shoulda, did all this stuff. I personally don't have any of that. I just don't. If I want to do it, I go do it. Fall on my face, I pick myself up, keep going.
Be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
100%. It's the only way you grow. It's the only way you grow. Don't be afraid.
Beautiful. Well, Dave, thank you so much for sharing your story. Some of these life lessons are great. I'm looking forward to coming back up to Philly, seeing family and friends. And I know my brother is dying to bring me over to make pizza or have pizza with you, and maybe pull some cheese with you. I can't wait to do
Now,
that.
listen, if you want to hang out with me, you do the day, you come for a few hours. We'll make cheese I make it twice a day, so.
I'm looking forward to that greatly, and I will give you a heads up. Those of you who are listening or watching, if you're in Philly or are going to Philly or already in Philly, it's Ravanesi's Pizza Napolitana, right in Glen
Glen
Mills,
Mills, Glen
Glen
Mills.
Mills, which is just outside of Philly on Baltimore Pike.
Yes.
So, but remember now, if they want to reserve a dough ball, where do they call? How do they do that?
Just call the restaurant. We start answering the phone after 3. I mean, I'm there in the morning, but I don't answer it only because I'm busy doing. If that was the case, I wouldn't get anything done because I prep everything by myself. So my staff will come in at 3 o'clock. They answer the
And they'll
phones.
answer the phone. So it's not a social media thing. You're not going to get. It's not an Instagram thing. It's not a YouTube thing. It's you got to call. It's person to person.
I know. Yeah, that's my fault. I get yelled at all the time for
Maybe
that.
not your fault. Maybe the virtue of the whole place. I mean, I think we know that a lot of people are being successful using in social media, but I think word of mouth is still the best way to grow and build a business. And I think finding work and life balance, which is something that you continue to work with, and in putting your package together, the Dave Ravanesi show, so to speak, is it's all about balance. And so I congratulate you on that. And I can't wait to come up, have your pizza, and maybe if any of you are listening, let Dave know that you heard about it here through Pizza Quest.
No, that'd be great. Listen, I appreciate the opportunity too. And it's funny when your brother came in and he says, "I'm Harry Reinhardt." I went, "Your brother Peter?" And
Did you say that? Yeah.
absolutely, no, absolutely. And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh man, I've read his books." I said,
Oh, that's so cool.
"Oh yeah, it
It's a
was kind of
small world, huh?
absolutely, yeah." Because that was the second time he was in though. Because I remember the first time I said, "I know you. You sat over
Yeah.
there the other time."
The
And
first time he came in, he just accidentally found you, and he was so excited when it's always best when you don't go to someplace with some kind of preconceived idea, but when it's like, wow, where was this place all my life?
no, exactly, yeah,
And he
no, and
just lives a few miles from you, so it surprised him that he didn't know about you, after all these years.
I'll tell you a quick story. So I'm on the mats. I'm doing jiu-jitsu, rolling with a guy. And so we get finished rolling. He says to me, he goes, "Oh, where do you live?" I go, "I live out in West Grove." And he goes, "Oh man," he goes, Glen Mills?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "You got to go to this pizza spot." And I go, "Oh, really?" And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "This guy Ravanesi." And I go, "Oh, wow." I go, "Do you like it?" He goes, "Oh man, it's fantastic." I go, "Cool. I have to check it out someday." One of the other guy goes, "Listen, you idiot, that's the guy." He goes,
That's
"That's you." He goes, "That's you." I go, "Yeah." And so it was
that
fun.
is wonderful when that happens. Oh my God, it makes your day.
Well, thank God he liked it.
Well, I haven't heard of anybody who doesn't like it. So,
You always have
yeah,
detractors. That's all good.
you're doing something right. Dave, thank you
Peter,
so much for
appreciate it.
being with us on Pizza Quest today. And thank all of you for watching and for listening. Join us on the next episode of Pizza Quest every week. We post a new conversation with some of the most interesting people you can imagine. Thanks, Dave.
Peter,
And
thank you.
see you on the next episode of Pizza Quest.